Hello, this video is about what I call thought pausing versus denial. And I want to explain this to help people understand the difference and the important difference and how helpful it can be to block thoughts that you want to decide not to think about them. But to distinguish that from denial, which can be more problematic. My name is Bill Claudy. I'm a psychotherapist with over 45 years of experience, trying to kind of help people better understand themselves. So that's what we're going to talk about today, the difference, how to understand yourself and your internal thought processes. And that it's good to understand how your mind works, how your internal thoughts work, because they're invisible. If I throw something in anger, that's pretty clear what happened. If I'm sitting in a corner, or if I'm crying, or if I'm staring at somebody, or walking real slowly versus real quickly, these are all physical signs of what's going on inside of us mentally with our feelings and our thoughts. Those are hard to understand because they result in these reactions, these physical things that others can see. But we need to understand what's going on internally so that we can channel our emotions, the name of this channel, and our actions in a way that's productive and helpful. So here's an example of that. And this is something that I was thinking about the other day, which I'll call thought pausing, in which we sometimes make a choice to not think about something because we don't have time for it right now, or we can't deal with it right now, but we may and need to deal with it later. This is very different from denial, okay, which is, as they say in AA, from what I've heard, denial is not a river in Egypt. It's a way of suppressing our thoughts so that we continue to function in an unhealthy way. So let's make a few distinctions. So again, for me and for you, I just want you to know that when you do what I call thought pausing, that's a healthy, normal, productive way to deal with your daily life. Let's differentiate it between denial, which is sometimes a long-lasting refusal to talk about very major issues, maybe gambling or alcohol abuse, which is harming you and your family and others, because you just deny that as a issue in your life and therefore not deal with it, therefore it never gets better, therefore your life deteriorates. While thought pausing is a productive thing to do sometimes. There's also something called thought stopping, which is a cognitive behavioral therapy technique to deal with obsessive or negative thoughts, where you make a decision and how not to think about those thoughts. There's also something called procrastination, in which we don't think about stuff because we don't want to do it right now. That can be kind of harmful in the long run, true, also for people. Another one is dissociation. That's a rather more severe situation in which a person may be being abused sexually or emotionally or physically, and they disassociate. Their mind goes off into another corner so they don't connect with the harm that is being done to them at that time. And that, again, is very different from thought pausing. So let me tell you a couple differences between thought pausing, which is a positive, coping, normal, healthy thing to do, and something that I wonder if you will recognize in yourself more as I talk about it, and therefore learn a little bit about how your mind works. So a couple different distinctions is that, again, with thought pausing, you're making a choice to not think about something versus kind of a semi-conscious driven unconsciousness, with denial, where you're simply will not allow yourself to ever think about the problems that are happening because of the drinking or drugs or gambling or other major problems. So one is a choice, the other is like a default position. Another thing is with thought pausing, it's typically for general thoughts of your daily life that is part of how we function and get through things. I'll give you some examples of that versus extreme negative thoughts or something. So this thought pausing is about just dealing with daily life things versus major life issues. Another distinction is with thought pausing, your intention is to act on it later. Definitely, maybe in that same day, typically, or a couple hours later, or a day later. Versus with denial, the idea is never to think about it, never go back to it. Okay. And also, one last distinction might be that thought pausing is constructive, denial is destructive. That denial stops us from ever dealing with the issues we have, while thought pausing gives you a chance to deal with it later because you can't right at the moment. And I'll give you some examples of that. If you are working from home, there's probably many times during some days where you've got to deal with kids or paying a bill or going for a bike ride or watching a favorite show or doing things like that, but you're working, so you really can't. So what you do healthfully is put that out of your thoughts. We'll talk a little bit more at the end of this about how to do that or kind of what that means, how you can understand what's going on in your head. But again, basically that's an example where in a healthy way you decide, I can't deal with the party tonight, I gotta work, right? You might have some medical concerns that you're thinking about, but you've got to make supper or go jogging or deal with family or make phone calls. So you will put that aside right now, the worries about your health or somebody else's right now to focus on something else. That's an internal process. That's a healthy one. Another example that might be like you might have a real sad situation, and let's say you have kids and you don't want to cry in front of them or get angry. So you will kind of block that out, those thoughts of those negative things, to take charge of what you're doing at home. Last example I'll give you is that I use that a lot, this thought pausing, when I'm doing these videos. Like a couple of days ago, I wanted to think about, my next video, and I just put it aside. I say I can't because I don't want to invest in that thought process right now because that's a separate thing I want to do. And now, if I start it now, I might get some brilliant thoughts in my own mind, but I won't write them down and I may forget them later. And I also don't want to get on that train because I'll keep going and I want to do that all at one time. So I do some thought pausing where I just simply put this off until later. So to state the obvious, you probably know how to do thought pausing and you probably do it all the time. What I'm trying to do is help you be conscious about that because this is an example of how your mind works. Again, you can see when you shout at the dog or walk in the door being quiet and sullen or are staring off in space, somebody else can see that and say, oh, something's going on with you. But they don't know what it is. And you want to know what it is to deal with it better. And so just realizing that thought pausing is a healthy, productive way to cope with things, I think is a little bit freeing. And you don't have to confuse it with denial. That's a whole separate issue of major problems. So in fact, that's one of the reasons I did this video is because I think people don't think about thought pausing because they confuse it with denial and don't want to get into that whole topic or understand the differences. So that's important. So here's kind of what I know I do when I'm doing thought pausing. As soon as I realize I have a thought entering my mind that I can't deal with at the time, I will just kind of put it out. In me, it goes up to my left, sort of. That's a visualization some people do. They'll just have that thought and they'll put it up and maybe put it in a locker or somehow just kind of put it out of their mind. Here's what I'm saying. You know you're doing that. It's a conscious choice and a healthy one. And so that thought is kind of sitting there for a little minute, and you're just deciding not to engage in it and not to think about it anymore, because that's going to lead to a whole maybe time spent on that issue. So what I'm saying is you kind of have that thought enter your mind and you just put it aside. You kind of like don't grasp it and go with it. You put it aside. And sometimes what you can do also, if you want to shut that out temporarily, this is not denial, is pausing your thoughts for a better time, is you can, if you're laying in bed in the morning or at night, open your eyes. That'll really help get rid of that thought. So you're laying there and you're starting to think about this thing and you go, just open your eyes. And that'll help you. Then you kind of make the conscious choice. I'm putting that aside now. And then engage in some other thoughts. Get on another track of something that's you want to think about and not something that at the current time is not helpful for you. So, you can just kind of also say to yourself, not now. Use a code word like that, or shake your head a little bit, do a physical action. Again, these are all simple things that you might be doing something like now, and maybe you have more productive ways. I'd love to hear of those if you have them. But ways to kind of make the conscious choice to pause your thoughts, not end them. You'll come back to them later, but not at this present time because you have other responsibilities or things that you're doing that you can't let yourself get into those disparate thoughts that are all around here. So I will just wrap up by saying that's my intention, is help you recognize something maybe you do all the time and never thought about, but this is a clue and a cue into what goes on in our brain that affects what goes on in our body, which affects what other people see and what we see in the visible world. I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, please do subscribe and check for all, because I just do videos. I'm not going to crowd you with any other stuff. And I do this weekly. I hope to see you next Friday. Let a friend know if you think this was helpful to you. And I really hope it was. Thanks very much.